I'm Teneale.
And I'm Kelsey, and we're financial advisors from Alman Partners True Wealth, bringing you thought-provoking conversations around you, your money and your life on the Wealth Experience podcast.
Welcome to Wealth Experience, your podcast for all things wealth related. Today, I'm honoured to be bringing a special guest into the studio, Scott Alman. He's the visionary and founder of Alman Partners and also 𝐿𝑚𝑎𝑛, which is a New Zealand-based firm providing guidance, efficiencies and support to financial advisors. So a little bit about Scott. He's a wealth of experience, which is great for our podcast, in all things financial planning, business ownership and board governance. He's founded our very own financial planning practice in 1985. Scott now has 40 years of experience in business ownership, and some of his accomplishments include growing our firm from a one-man band to a team of over 30 people in 2 locations, creating a business succession plan that spans over multiple generations and successfully transitioning the business beyond the former, which is a feat not easily accomplished. He's founded not one but 2 highly successful businesses. Scott also established the 𝐼𝐸𝐾𝐚𝐥𝐭𝐡 Community Foundation in 2003, an independent philanthropic association aimed at giving where you live. If you'd like to learn more about the charitable organisation, please give us a listen on episode 19, The Gift of Giving, Philanthropy, where Kelsey and I interviewed Frances Easton, who's currently the chair of the foundation. Scott's also had a lot of community contributions, which was recognised in 2008 when he was announced the winner of the Queensland Regional Achievement and Community Awards. And as if this wasn't enough, Scott's also the founding member of the Global Association of Independent Advisors, a fellow of the now Financial Advice Association of Australia, and belongs to the Institute of Directors in New Zealand. My goodness, Scott, what accomplishments. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be here, Teneale.
Flew in just from New Zealand today.
Just about an hour ago, I think it was.
Feeling the effects already?
Yep, no, it's great to be here. Nice to be back in the tropical climate.
We appreciate having you here, and I think you've brought the rain with you. It looks like it's about to start pouring outside.
Yeah, good old North Queensland downpour. Here we come.
You'll be used to that. Many years in the region, though.
Absolutely.
Now, with all of that having been said, I kind of don't really know where to start today's session, but tell us a little bit about who Scott Alman is.
Well, after your very long there complimentary intro, I thought, gee, I'm getting old. You know, that's all that happens. It's just you get a lot of things done when you're lucky enough to live a fair length of time. No, I live in Christchurch, and with my wife Melissa, and her 2 boys still live with us, and my 3 are in Australia and in different cities. But we love Christchurch, and we get out in the outdoors regularly, and we go tramping, they call it in New Zealand, which is bushwalking effectively.
But you don't have all the bideies over there,
don't
right?
Don't have the bideies, don't have the snakes, which is so much, so good. You just can walk into the bush and not worried about being bitten by a snake or standing on a cane toad or something like that. But no, a lot of my time, to be fair, is taken up with a business over there, 𝐿𝑚𝑎𝑛. I feel like as the CEO and the main shareholder or the largest shareholder, that is a 24/7 job. It's really grown. Like �11, manage over $9 billion of assets in New Zealand, and we've got 50 plus staff. And that's going great guns.
It's a huge accomplishment. That's wonderful to hear. And you sort of mentioned a little bit about your 3 now adult children. Mm-hmm. You've got a lot of experience to share, no doubt. What's something that you've learned over your journey that if you had the time, you'd instill that into the 3 kids?
Into the 3 kids?
Yeah.
The kids are great. They've all turned out really well. I think you can only do what you can do. You lead by example as a parent, don't you? It doesn't matter so much what you say. I think they look at you and how the values you live by, and they see how you operate, and that's the most important thing. I think with my kids, I mean, someone told me when I was a new parent, the best piece of advice I received, they said, make sure you tell your kids they're loved, and more importantly, make sure they feel lovable. And that stood me in really good stead. And I think I'm a good dad. I love being a dad. And thirdly, all I'd say is to really treasure the time you have with your children, because they grow up so fast and they don't get any younger after that.
I feel like I hear that from everybody, and it's so true though, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Leo's turning 11 this Friday coming, so
Oh, wow.
I feel like if there's anything I've taken from conversations with everybody is that relationships and your time with your children is very special, and you've got to make the most of it.
Yeah, those mornings or afternoons along the sporting field watching your children play, there you look back on those and go, they were just treasures. I didn't realise how good they were at the time.
What sports were the kids into when they were?
They were netball, soccer. There was golf. I did a lot of golf for Brendan.
Yeah, golf. Yeah,
rugby. Yep.
All sorts then.
All sorts.
It's great. It sets them up for life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big proponent of team sports for kids,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Lots of life lessons in them. And so, Scott, for yourself, you started out in business ownership at a very young age yourself, at about 24.
Mm-hmm.
What led you originally to wanting to get into business ownership, or was it thrust upon you? How did that happen?
I don't know if I'm kind of post-rationalising it now, but if I think about it, I think my father was in business. He was a golf professional, so he was a professional sportsman, but he was in business. He was the golf pro at Mackay for 39 years. So I think growing up, you saw his, he'd come home with the cash, the takings of the day. You'd be out at the pro shop. You saw how he interacted with clients. And I saw my mother was really involved with the community, and she worked really hard. So I saw that as a child, and they taught me some really good life lessons with money early on. They got me saving $1 a week, through the bank, the school banking system, and they just taught me good lessons. I think I bought a house. My first house went halves with my dad at 19 years of age.
Wow.
And we borrowed half, and the rent kind of paid the other half off over about 5 years, and that worked. I joined the bank when I was about 16. So when I got offered, very fortuitously, got offered the role of as a financial advisor, I seemed to take to it. I ducked to order, really.
Absolutely. How did the job offer come about?
That was, again, you've got to get lucky. Better being lucky than smart, really. My rugby coach at the time, he was mates with a local guy at the financial institution, and my rugby coach wanted me to be in the town and working. So he said, "You got any jobs going?" So next thing, I'm being told I'd make a great financial advisor. I wasn't so sure, but it worked out okay.
We've spoken a bit on previous podcasts about this idea of luck, because I've said many times myself that I was very lucky to come into financial planning. But I feel like luck is available to those that see opportunity in something, right? And so your coach very well probably saw you as a good team player and somebody that he did, like you say, wanted to keep around. And so an opportunity was presented to you, but it took yourself going out there and accepting that, and then making something more of it, I'm sure.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. I look back and go, wow, if I wouldn't have turned up for that job interview, what would I have done? I think, again, it might be post-rationalising, but I think I would have gone into business at some point, whatever that might be.
It's in your DNA.
I think it was.
Yeah, okay. And undoubtedly, over the years of being in business ownership, I'm assuming that it's not always been rosy, though, right?
No, I mean, like you say, it's close to 40 years now. No, it's not always been rosy. I mean, it's got its good times, its bad times. It's hard work. I mean, I used to say, when you go into business for yourself, you're working for a madman. So you don't go into business for any other reason, really. At the end of the day, you go into business, you have to be going into business to make money.
Absolutely.
I mean, there has to be a driver to grow that business. You can't do it as a hobby. You can't do it just as a lifestyle thing. You've got to be all in or nothing.
And what do you credit to? How did you get through the hard times? Was there something in particular that you went, this is the reason I'm doing it, or that's something that kicked you up the bum and went, you're doing this regardless of whether you want to or not?
Yeah, well, I think, again, maybe the sporting analogy. I mean, if you played a lot of sport, you played a lot of team sports, it's not always, you're not always winning, are you? But you don't give up, and you just try your hardest and you keep going till the ref blows full time. So you just have to keep going. I mean, you can't go around them, around it. You can't go over it. You've just got to get through it when it's tough, and it's not much fun.
Yeah.
But you've just got to get through it.
Absolutely. And there's incredible joys, though, that come out of this. So for our listeners, would you have any of those wow moments during your career that you kind of went, you know, this is amazing, this is special?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's a good question, and maybe not a wow moment, but one that really touched me is a couple of times we've had client events at Alman Partners where we've had a couple of hundred clients in the one room, people I might have worked with for 20, 25 years, and man, that is humbling. I mean, these people have placed their trust and their confidence in you. That's a huge leap of faith for them to do, and you've been a part of their life. And it's, I don't know, in some ways it's you know more about them than you do some of your relatives.
Absolutely.
So I just remember a couple of functions I've walked out and thought, that's what it's all about. That's really, really good.
It's just a lot of
the
special.
biggest buzz. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a huge joy that we get to experience as financial advisors, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very special. And undoubtedly, you know, you've taken on helping out so many people in the community through their own financial planning journeys, and then taking that a step further. And we've spoken a little bit about the different ventures that you've had during your career. When you've stepped out into the next venture or the next leap, is there a particular way that's made you feel, whether that's angst or excitement or trepidation, or what have been your feelings? Can you share some of that with us?
I don't know. Was it ignorance, stupidity, or I mean, it's you know, people sometimes say, "Oh, you're really brave doing that," and you go, "Well, I'm not so sure. I don't know if I thought that right through." The best analogy for me is climbing a mountain. You know, you look at it perhaps and you go, "Oh, I'd like to climb up that," and you do the planning and you think it through, you resource it up, and off you go. You're all full of energy. And then you get to a scary bit. You go, why the heck did I do this? I want to go back. It was so good down there. I'm really another fine mess I've got myself into. I'm never doing this again. And then you climb a bit further, and the view gets better, and it's still scary, and you don't know how it's going to work out.
Yeah.
But when you start getting to the top, the view gets better, and you get to the top, and you go, that was worth it. And suddenly you have amnesia and forget why, all the pain. and you just like, I might do that other mountain over there next. So I think having a bad memory helps.
Well, you sort of mentioned earlier as well too that you can go tramping all through New Zealand, so maybe that's part of that as well. Is that there's less bites in the jungle each time you get to the top of each hill. But
the funny, I used to, you say that, but in New Zealand it's not the wildlife that will kill you, it's the weather. So a lot of people don't turn up for work on Mondays in New Zealand. They're still lost out in the bush there. That's what I noticed when I first went to New Zealand. You've got to go prepared if you're going outdoors.
Wow, absolutely. And each one of your business decisions that you've made, I mean, some of that seems like it's founded in the feeling and the gut feeling, and some of it's obviously founded in a lot of logic as well too, where there's an analysis done and you kind of go, these are the good and the bad things that might happen, and you still sort of make that leap of faith. How much of that thought process and that planning, that SWOT analysis, whatever that looks like, do you typically enter into before you make a leap?
No, I don't. Don't go into the detail. I think again, growing up, my father, he wouldn't let me win a game of table tennis. He wouldn't let me win a chess game. But we always were playing these games which were strategic, and I think, that's something that's helped me a lot. Thinking ahead and trying to think, well, if I do X, that'll lead to Y, and so I've always feel like I've been able to gather and be curious enough to get enough information myself to go, I think this will work, and then you back yourself. And if you listen to people, I mean, you've got to take a risk. But again, you're young, and you're naive. You don't really think and it's probably best not to think through the ramification of the risk you're taking. But if you've got some experience, and you've got some hard work, and you give it a good go, it'll probably work out anyway. You've got to think.
Yeah.
You've got to really do some critical thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelsey and I have spoken a lot over time about things like, you know, the time that's on your side. So you mentioned when you're young and you've got the ability to back yourself and know that your human capital's worth a heck of a lot. And so, you know, hearing from somebody that's been very successful in that way, I think there is a huge amount of trust you put in yourself and that entrepreneurship comes out, and you kind of go, well, if I want to make something bigger and better than where I am and what I am today, I have to take those leaps of faith, don't I?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think starting at a young age, I've been self-employed effectively for 40 years. I don't know any other way.
Absolutely. But during that space of time, I mean, you've surrounded yourself by many different people that have been successful in their own rights and formed so many deep relationships. How do you know that you're surrounding yourself with the right people when you're building something?
I go back to the sporting analogy again. It's so you know the feeling in a really good team. You don't have to all be superstars, but you can be a really good team if you gel and work together. And I think that's exactly the example in business. You just have the team has a feel when it's right, and it almost becomes self-selective. If there's someone there who the values don't quite line up with that team, and it's not that they're not the right person, it's just they're not the right skill set or value set for that team. And so I think the team self-cleanses, if you like, and those people kind of move on. So I think there's different stages in businesses as well. So, I mean, I just use the example of Alman Partners started off self-employed, and then a couple of partners came on board. But as the founding partner, it's a partnership. But I was still the MD and making the decisions, kind of the captain of the team in that example.
Yeah.
But when the business gets much bigger, you've got to really become the coach.
Yeah.
And you've got to sort of remove yourself a little bit. You're not leading by example like you were when you were captain so much, but you're completely responsible for the culture, and you've got to be more, you've got to be thoughtful about a much bigger picture. So it's more of a coaching role, and I think in that I've probably gone off the track on your question.
No, it's great. It's a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there is something incredibly powerful in the culture that's built, because a culture is going to be built regardless of whether you take part in it or not, right? It's going to be there. So you're absolutely right that if you've got surrounded by people that have a values-based alignment, and they all have a clear vision of where they're going towards, and that's a vision that they can buy into, you're going to get something pretty special if you're constantly putting that culture at the forefront, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be. You've got to get that buy-in by your own vision and energy, and you know, as a leader, and the team wants a leader. You've got to be the one to put your hand up and be an example for them early on, and keep leading.
Absolutely, and I've certainly experienced that with my time with Alman Partners. So, 16 years after your 40 years, and the culture that you've instilled in there is just as strong today, undoubtedly, as when you first started your journey for Alman Partners. So it is very, very powerful. And we've also spoken to our listeners before a little bit about, you know, taking what you've got and investing in yourself. And that's something that you've done incredibly well over time. Can you give our listeners any tips on how to be financially successful, particularly if they're thinking about maybe going out and getting into their own ventures?
I'll do my best to stab at it.
we want the golden answer all wrapped up, don't we? That's what we're asking for.
There's a lot to that, a lot to unpick there. No, I can only use the example of what I have done, and you know, you've got to have some experience. You've got to earn your stripes. So you need to just learn, have some experience, and have some skill in what you're taking on as a business. People who I remember as clients would often say, we're going to retire and go and buy a coffee shop. And they've never run a coffee shop in their life, and they're going to pay many $100,000 to buy this coffee shop. And I said,
was it because they liked coffee, or
because they thought that they're just going to business? You know, we always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I said, why don't you go and work in a coffee shop for at least 6 months?
Yeah.
see if you like it before, because you don't, you need to get your hands dirty first of all. But at Alman Partners, I used to ring up other advisors around Australia who I really respected and admired, and I would fly to Sydney or Melbourne and visit them if they would give me an hour of their time and just pick their brains. And I found that really, really effective. Didn't necessarily copy them, but you got something, you took something away from that, and you pieced your own puzzle together. And I did the same with 𝐿𝐴𝐶. It was something new, and I looked around the world actually, and I found a firm in the United States. So I contacted them, and they were generous enough to have me over for a week, and they just opened their whole business up to me. I mean, it's like, they were just, they had never had anyone knock on their door like that before, and they gave me all their manuals and everything they did. They just opened the whole thing up.
So you got the secret sauce from...
Got the secret sauce for there straight away. Now, it was different enough that it didn't really copy exactly, but you're getting inspired, you're getting inspiration from it. But you need mentors, but you need people to who inspire you.
Absolutely.
As well. And other firms inspire you and go, hey, if they can do that, maybe I can.
And I'm sure that you'd hear a lot about the things that work well and also the things that didn't work so well too. Maybe you're thinking about going out and getting into a certain area and somebody else has had experience and that kind of goes, oh, don't walk down that path. We've been there.
Yeah, look, ideas are free.
Yeah.
They're really easy ideas.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is implementation. I think Elon Musk says it's actually not, it's pretty hard, but it's not that hard to design a car. What's really hard is what's a million times harder is actually building one. And I think that's so true for business. It's the implementation's the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not going to go out there and try and design my own car after this conversation, but I do like the analogy. And we've undoubtedly got listeners that do have their own businesses successfully running at the moment. You have sat on a number of boards, Scott, and have been very good at creating governance around businesses. What can you give to our listeners, in terms of anything they should be thinking about when they're creating survivorship throughout their business?
It's going to be different for every business, absolutely. Again, Alman Partners is a partnership, so you've got a group of people who are mutually aligned. So that's the governance is almost embedded.
And that's not always the case though, right? Even sometimes partnerships don't go as smoothly. It's harder to have different competing types of energies.
I used to say the only ship that's guaranteed to sink is a partnership. But the governance is really comes down to that, your trust and what you've put in place before you've gone into business with another partner. You need to have you'll always hear before you go in, you'd better have a document to say how you get out of this. And that's, I learnt that the hard way a couple of times. So, but governance overall, I mean, as the business grows bigger, it kind of happens naturally. Again, you look for people. I've been lucky with 𝐿𝐴𝐶. I've got a wonderful chairman there who's taught me so much and how important that is. And we've got passive shareholders as well. About 50% of the company's owned by employees and 50% is owned passively. So that's a whole other level of governance that's required because you're spending other people's money. But again, you just got to be curious and go and ask people and learn and put together a team.
Yeah, wonderful. And there's a lot of resources that businesses can go to. It's, starting with networking and getting out there and seeing what other businesses exist. Sometimes it's not the same type of business you're even talking to that's going to give you these amazing ideas. And
Institute of Directors, I'm going to give a plug for the Institute of Directors in Australia. I mean, they're great organisations. They are set up to help people with that exact question, and they've set up to help firms at all sizes. So I'd encourage people to look at that. Brilliant.
And so tell me, I'm very interested now. We've been through a lot of good tips for our listeners. What's next? What's next for Scott?
I've got to finish this chapter, this 𝐿𝐴𝐶 chapter yet. So, Alman Partners is my, I love Alman Partners, and I've just recently, as you know, Teneale, stood down as chairman. So I feel like this part's, that chapter is coming to an end in some ways, and 𝐿𝑚𝑎𝑛, it's probably only got I think from my involvement I need to start winding that down and then get to a chapter 3.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I think chapter 3, it may involve a lot more family, friends, a lot more tramping.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot more of those type of activities, but you never know. You just never know. I think there might be something else in there business-wise as well.
Great. Well, we're going to keep an ear out for the edition of the Scott Alman book that's to come next, because I think we can certainly learn a lot more from you, and we're excited to see what your next chapter does bring, Scott. So before we close it up, is there any last words that you'd like to leave for our listeners?
No, but thank you for having me today, and I just think Alman Partners is carrying on, is achieved things that I would never have dreamed, and it's going to continue to do that with partners like yourself and my other partners there who have the highest ethical standards and quality of service that customers could want to have here in Queensland.
Thank you so much, Scott. Well, it's not often that we get opportunities like today to speak to someone such as Scott and learn some great takeaways on creating success, whether that be in our personal lives, our careers, our businesses. Scott, I'd like to personally thank you very much for coming on today and joining me. And we do want to hear more from you in the future. So once you've written that next chapter, we'll hook you back in.
Thanks, Teneale.
For our listeners, please don't forget to like and share our content. If you'd like to hear more from experts such as Scott, please add some comments and questions if you would like those answered. As always, we look forward to speaking with you next time on Wealth Experience. The opinions of the presenters are objectively ascertainable and are not intended to be financial product or personal advice.